Facticity, the weight of everything you can't change. The given world, what you inherit without choosing. You didn't choose to exist. You didn't choose your body, your time, your place, your family, your circumstances. You were thrown into existence with a constellation of facts already determined, and these facts, this facticity, shapes everything while being changeable by nothing. You're radically free to choose what to make of your situation, but you can't choose the situation itself. This is the paradox of human existence: freedom constrained by facts, possibility limited by givens. Existential philosophy distinguishes between what you are, your facticity, and what you make of what you are, your transcendence or freedom. You are this body, this past, this situation, but you transcend these facts by choosing how to relate to them, what meaning to give them, what possibilities to pursue within them. The tension between facticity and freedom is fundamental to human existence. Facticity is everything about your existence that's already decided. Your genes, your birth date, your birthplace, your early childhood, your native language, your historical moment, your mortality. These are brute facts, not chosen, not changeable, simply given. You must live with them, through them, despite them. The weight of facticity is that it's permanent. You can change your location, but not where you were born. You can change your body somewhat, but not fundamentally. You can reinterpret your past, but not revise it. The facts are fixed, and their fixedness is burden because you want to be free, but you're constrained. Sartre says facticity is the in-itself dimension of human reality, the being that simply is, without consciousness, without possibility, without freedom. You have pure being in the form of your body, your past, your situation. This being weighs you down, limits you, constrains your freedom even while making freedom possible. The paradox is that facticity enables freedom. Without a given situation, there'd be nothing to be free in relation to. Without constraints, choice would be meaningless. Without facts, there'd be no facts to transcend. The very thing that limits your freedom is also what makes freedom possible. Think about a simple example. Your height. You didn't choose it. You can't change it significantly. It's a fact of your bodily existence. This fact limits certain possibilities. You probably can't be a professional basketball player if you're very short, or jockey if you're very tall. But this fact also opens possibilities. Your particular height enables certain activities, creates certain experiences, shapes how you move through world. Or consider your native language. You didn't choose it. It was given by birth circumstances. It shapes how you think, what ideas come naturally, how you experience world. You can learn other languages, but your first language has primacy. You can't fully escape. This is facticity, unchosen, but inescapable. The frustration with facticity is that it seems arbitrary. Why this body and not another? Why this time and not another? Why these circumstances and not others? There's no reason, just chance, accident, the randomness of birth. You're stuck with givens that have no justification, no purpose, no meaning except what you create. Different people experience facticity's weight differently. Those born into privilege might not notice constraints as acutely. Their facticity opens more than it closes. Those born into disadvantage feel facticity's weight constantly. Their givens limit possibilities before freedom even operates. But everyone has facticity. Even the most privileged person didn't choose their privilege, can't change their past, will die regardless of advantages. The facticity might be lighter, but it's still there. Unchosen facts that shape existence while being unchangeable by will. The existential task is living the tension between facticity and freedom. You can't change the facts, but you can change your relationship to the facts. You can't choose new past, but you can choose what meaning to give the past you have. You can't select new body, but you can choose how to inhabit the body you were given. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, consider your own facticity. Your body lying in bed, given, not chosen. Your past that led to this moment, fixed, not revisable. Your situation, partly chosen but mostly inherited. All of these facts weigh on you because they limit you, constrain you, burden you with givens you didn't select. But these facts also ground you. Without them, you'd be pure abstraction, pure possibility with nowhere to stand. The facts give you something to work with, push against, create from. The weight is real, but it's also foundation. The constraints are frustrating, but they're also what makes your freedom meaningful. The comfort, if there is comfort, comes from accepting what can't be changed while exercising freedom within what can. You can't choose new facticity, but you can choose what to make of the facticity you have. The weight remains, but how you carry it is yours to decide. The body you didn't choose. Flesh as fundamental facticity. Your body is the primary facticity. You didn't choose it. You can't fundamentally change it. You're stuck with this flesh, these organs, this nervous system, this particular physical manifestation. The body is the most immediate, most inescapable fact of your existence, and it limits you in ways you can never fully transcend. You were born with particular genes that determined your basic physical structure. Tall or short, fast or slow, healthy or ill-disposed, attractive by cultural standards or not. These bodily facts shape everything. Your experiences, your possibilities, how others perceive you, what you can attempt, what's foreclosed before you begin. The body ages without your consent. You can maintain it, optimize it, care for it, but you can't stop the fundamental deterioration. Each day your body is slightly older, slightly closer to dysfunction and death. This is facticity in pure form, biological process that proceeds regardless of your will. The body gets sick, injured, tired. You don't choose illness. You don't choose when your body breaks down. You don't control when pain arrives or departs. The body has its own schedule, its own vulnerabilities, its own limits that your consciousness can't override. Think about chronic pain or illness. Your consciousness is free. You can think whatever thoughts, imagine whatever possibilities, but your body hurts, limits, constrains. The pain is facticity, a brute fact that you must live with, around, despite. Your freedom operates within the constraint of bodily suffering you didn't choose and can't eliminate. Or consider disability. Whether from birth or acquired, disability is bodily facticity that shapes existence fundamentally. The disabled person's consciousness is as free as anyone's, but their bodily situation creates different constraints, different possibilities, different relationship to world. The facticity of impaired body is inescapable. Even without disability or illness, the body is limitation. You tire, you hunger, you need sleep. You can't fly, can't breathe underwater, can't see in the dark without tools. The body's capacities are finite, determined, unchosen. You work with the body you have, not the body you might want. The body also shapes identity in ways you don't control. Your race is bodily facticity that creates social experiences you didn't choose. Your sex is bodily facticity that shapes how others perceive and treat you. Your appearance is bodily facticity that influences opportunities and obstacles you encounter. You can modify the body somewhat, exercise, surgery, hormones, prosthetics. But these modifications work within bodily constraints. You can't redesign yourself from scratch. You can't choose entirely new body. You work with the flesh you were given, trying to make it serve your purposes while it fundamentally limits those purposes. The body's needs control your schedule. You must eat, sleep, eliminate. These bodily necessities aren't chosen. They're imposed by biological facticity. Your day is structured around unchosen bodily requirements that consciousness can't wish away. The body's desires often conflict with conscious intentions. You want to be thin, but your body craves food. You want to be productive, but your body demands rest. You want to avoid someone, but your body desires them sexually. The body has its own agenda, its own drives, independent of conscious will. Sartre describes the body as the for others, how you appear to others, how they see you, the object you are in their perception. This bodily being for others is facticity you can't control. You can manage presentation, but you can't determine perception. Your body means something to others that you didn't choose and can't fully change. The person experiencing gender dysphoria feels acutely the facticity of biological body that doesn't match experienced identity. They can modify the body, but the modification works against fundamental facticity, biological facts that resist transformation, that remain stubbornly given even as they're partially changed. The aging person confronts bodily facticity increasingly. The body that once obeyed now rebels. Joints hurt, organs fail, capacities diminish. All the freedom in the world can't make the aging body young again. The facticity of deterioration is absolute. The body is also historical facticity. It carries your past in scars, in posture, in cellular memory. The childhood injuries, the adolescent awkwardness, the accumulated wear, all of this is written in flesh that carries history forward whether you want to remember or not. Different philosophical traditions relate to bodily facticity differently. Christianity often sees body as limitation to transcend. Buddhism sees body as impermanent vessel for consciousness. Existentialism sees body as fundamental facticity that consciousness must take up and live through. But all acknowledge you're embodied, and embodiment is constraint. You're not pure spirit, pure freedom, pure consciousness. You're flesh, and flesh is heavy, limited, given. The weight of flesh is the weight of facticity in its most immediate form. Can you accept the body you were given? Can you live through its constraints without constant resentment? Can you work with bodily facticity rather than against it? The acceptance doesn't mean loving every aspect of your flesh. It means acknowledging that this is the body you have, and this is the body you'll live and die in. The person at peace with bodily facticity isn't necessarily happy about their body. They might wish for different body, might work to change aspects they can change, but they've accepted the fundamental facts. This flesh, this limitation, this particular embodied existence. The acceptance reduces suffering without eliminating the constraints. Tonight, lying in bed, you're embodied. The body's weight on mattress, the body's need for rest, the body's particular aches and sensations. All of this is facticity. You didn't choose this body, but this is the body experiencing this moment. The weight is real, but it's also you. The limitation is frustrating, but it's also how you exist in world. The past you can't revise. Temporal facticity and history. Your past is absolute facticity. Everything you've done, everything that's happened to you, every choice you've made, all of it is fixed, unchangeable, permanent. You can reinterpret the past, give it new meaning, understand it differently, but you can't revise it, undo it, make it different than it was. The past is the most obvious facticity, pure fact that stands behind you unchangeable. You were born at particular time to particular parents in particular place. These facts are permanent. No choice you make today changes where and when and to whom you were born. This origin is brute fact that shapes everything while being revisable by nothing. You had particular childhood, the experiences, the relationships, the traumas, the joys. All of this happened and can't unhappen. You might wish your childhood had been different, might imagine alternative childhood, but the actual childhood you had is facticity. It's real, it's past, it's permanent. You made choices that seemed right at the time and now seem wrong. You pursued paths that led to dead ends. You hurt people you wish you hadn't hurt. You missed opportunities you wish you'd taken. All of this is past, and past is facticity. You can regret it, learn from it, try to make amends, but you can't change it. The peculiar burden of past facticity is that it's your past. You created it through your choices, yet now it stands as fact you must live with. You're free to choose your future, but your past is given by your former self to your current self, but given nonetheless, unchangeable nonetheless. Sartre says the past is pure being, the in itself that was once lived freedom but is now fossilized fact. When you acted yesterday, you were free, choosing, creating yourself. But today, yesterday's actions are facticity. They happened, they're real, they define who you were, and you can't change them. This creates strange relationship to your own past. You're responsible for it. You created it, but you're also constrained by it. You can't uncreate it. You must own past. You didn't choose because past. You chose it, while also acknowledging it as fact that present you inherits but can't revise. The criminal who served time has past facticity of having committed crime. This fact is permanent. They might transform themselves, might become different person, might never commit another crime. But the past crime is facticity. It happened, it's recorded, it's real. They're free to create new future, but past constrains that future through its unchangeable reality. Or consider the person who abandoned child, cheated on partner, betrayed friend. These past actions are facticity. The person might regret them profoundly, might apologize, might change completely, but the actions themselves stand as unchangeable facts. The betrayal happened. The harm was done. This is temporal facticity. You can't undo what was done. The past also includes what was done to you. Traumas, injustices, harms you didn't choose and didn't deserve. These are particularly frustrating facticity because you didn't create them yet, must live with them. The abuse victim's past is facticity. They must carry despite having no responsibility for its creation. Memory is how past facticity remains present. You remember or can't forget what happened. The memories shape current experience, influence current choices, constrain current freedom. Even when you're not actively remembering, the past operates as sedimented facticity, shaping your habits, your reactions, your personality in ways you don't consciously notice. The person trying to escape their past discovers that escape is impossible. You can change location, change name, change appearance, but the past follows because the past is in you, in your memories, your patterns, your bodily habits. Past facticity is portable. You carry it wherever you go. Different cultures relate to past differently. Some emphasize honoring ancestors, maintaining continuity with past. Others emphasize fresh starts, reinvention, escaping past. But all must acknowledge that past actually happened, that what was done can't be undone, that temporal facticity is absolute. The therapeutic culture promises to help you heal from past, but healing doesn't mean changing the past. It means changing your relationship to unchangeable past. The trauma still happened, the loss still occurred, the past facticity remains. What changes is how you live with it, carry it, let it shape or not shape your present. You can reinterpret past events. The experience that seemed traumatic might be reframed as learning. The failure that seemed devastating might be re-understood as necessary step. But the events themselves don't change. Only your narrative about them changes. The facticity remains while the meaning shifts. The person regretting major life choice, wrong career, wrong partner, wrong city, faces past facticity's weight. They can make different choices now, but they can't unmake past choices. The years in wrong career are years spent. The time in wrong relationship is time past. The past is sunk cost in the most absolute sense, gone, unchangeable, pure fact. Temporal facticity creates what you are in the present. Your current skills, knowledge, relationships, situation, all are products of past choices and experiences. You're free to create new future, but you create it from the platform of what you've already become through past that you can't revise. The acceptance of past facticity is difficult because it requires accepting irreversibility. What's done is done. What happened, happened. What you chose, you chose. You can't have different past, even though you might desperately wish you could. The past is the one thing that's absolutely, completely, permanently given. Can you accept your past without being imprisoned by it? Can you acknowledge that these things happened while still being free to choose what happens next? Can you carry past facticity without being crushed by its weight? The person at peace with their past hasn't necessarily made peace with everything that happened. They might still regret, still wish things had been different, still carry pain, but they've accepted the unchangeable nature of what occurred. They're not fighting against facts, not wishing reality were different, not consuming energy trying to revise the unrevivable. Tonight, your past is with you. Everything that led to this moment, the choices, the chances, the experiences, all of it is facticity, unchangeable, permanent. You can't revise it, but you also don't have to be defined by it. The past is fact, but the meaning of that fact is still partly free. The weight is real, but how you carry it tomorrow is yet to be determined, thrown into the world. Birth as ultimate facticity. You didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose your parents, your family, your social class, your culture, your nation, your historical moment. You were thrown into existence. Heidegger's Geworfenheit, thrownness without consent, without preparation, into situation you had no hand in creating. This thrownness is perhaps the most fundamental facticity of all. You emerged into already existing world with already established meanings, already functioning systems, already determined possibilities and constraints. The world didn't wait for you to decide how it should be organized. It was already organized, and you were thrown into that organization. The family you were born into is pure facticity. Rich or poor, educated or not, loving or abusive, stable or chaotic, whatever your family situation was, you didn't choose it. Yet it shaped you fundamentally. Your first years when you were most malleable were spent in situation you had zero control over. The person born to wealth inherits advantages they didn't earn. The person born to poverty inherits disadvantages they didn't deserve. Both are thrown into facticity, unchosen circumstances that profoundly shape their lives before they can make any free choices of their own. The historical moment of your birth is facticity. Born in 21st century, you have possibilities that someone born in 14th century couldn't imagine, but you also face constraints, environmental crisis, technological disruption, particular political realities that you didn't choose and can't escape. You're thrown into this time, and this time shapes what's possible. The culture you were born into is facticity. Language, religion, values, customs, taboos, all of this was given to you before you could think. You absorbed cultural facticity in infancy and childhood, internalized it so deeply that it feels natural rather than chosen. But it was given, not chosen. The nation you were born into determines your citizenship, your passport, your legal rights and restrictions. This is facticity with massive practical implications. The person born in wealthy nation has opportunities that person born in war-torn nation can't access. Neither chose their birthplace. Both must live with its consequences. Your given name is Facticity. Someone else named you. You might change your name later, but you were called something before you could choose. The name shaped how others related to you, how you thought of yourself, your sense of identity. Even if you change it, the original name is part of your past Facticity. The siblings you have or don't have is Facticity. Birth order is Facticity. Whether you a wanted child or accident is Facticity. The stability or dysfunction of your home is Facticity. All of these facts shaped your early development before you had any freedom to shape it yourself. Different people recognize thrownness at different ages. Some become conscious early that their situation is arbitrary, that they were thrown into circumstances not of their choosing. Others don't recognize thrownness until adulthood, when they realize how much of who they are was determined before they could choose. The privilege-blind person doesn't recognize their thrownness as privilege. The situation seems natural, deserved, the way things are, but it's Facticity. They were thrown into advantage position they didn't earn. The recognition of thrownness can be uncomfortable because it reveals your situation as arbitrary rather than deserved. The oppressed person feels thrownness acutely. They didn't choose to be born into subordinated group, didn't choose the discrimination they face, didn't choose the limited opportunities. The thrownness is burden, constraint, Facticity that weighs heavily. Heidegger says we're thrown into being in the world. We find ourselves already existing in world we didn't create, already engaged with meanings we didn't establish, already operating within possibilities we didn't determine. We can't go back before the throw. We're already thrown. We can only choose what to do from within the thrown situation. The immigrant experiences thrownness doubly. They were thrown into birth country, then chose to move but now find themselves thrown into new country with its own givens. They didn't choose original Facticity and can only partially choose new Facticity. Much of the new situation is also given, constraint, limitation. The adopted person confronts thrownness in complex form. They were thrown into birth family, then thrown into adoptive family. Which Facticity defines them? Both are real, both are unchosen, both shape who they became. The complexity doesn't reduce Facticity, it multiplies it. Thrownness creates what Sartre calls situation, the combination of Facticity and freedom. You're thrown into situation you didn't choose, but within that situation you're free to make choices. The situation constrains what's possible, but doesn't determine what you choose among possibilities. The person born with disability is thrown into bodily situation that constrains possibilities. The disability is Facticity, unchosen, given. But within that Facticity, freedom operates. How to live with disability, what meaning to give it, what to pursue despite it, these are free choices within thrown situation. The person born into particular religion is thrown into belief system. They might keep the religion, modify it, abandon it. They're free to choose their relationship to the given beliefs. But the original throwing into religious culture is Facticity. They started in a tradition they didn't choose. Thrownness explains why just choose advice is often inadequate. You can't just choose new family, new birthplace, new historical moment, new body, new culture. These are given. You can choose what to do within the constraints they create, but you can't choose away the constraints themselves. The recognition of thrownness can be liberating or oppressive. Liberating, you're not responsible for situation you were thrown into. You didn't choose your disadvantages, their Facticity. Oppressive, you're stuck with situation regardless of its unfairness. Being thrown doesn't mean you can easily escape what you were thrown into. Can you accept the thrownness of your existence? Can you acknowledge that you were thrown into situation not of your making, while also recognizing freedom to respond to that situation? Can you live the tension between given and chosen? The person at peace with thrownness isn't necessarily grateful for where they were thrown. They might wish for different circumstances, but they've accepted the factual nature of their throwing. This is where and when and how they arrived in existence. Fighting the facticity is futile. Working within it is possible. Tonight, consider. You were thrown here, into this body, this time, this place, this situation. The throw wasn't fair or unfair. It just was. This is the facticity you inherited at birth, and this is the facticity you still carry. You can't choose different thrownness, but you can choose what to make of the thrownness you have. Death as facticity. The one certainty you can't avoid. You will die. This is absolute facticity. Certain, unchangeable, inescapable. You don't know when or how, but you know that death will come. This knowledge is facticity that shapes every moment, even when you're not consciously thinking about it. Mortality is the ultimate constraint, the final limit, the facticity that ends all freedom. Unlike other facticities, you can't work around death. You can't modify it, can't partially transcend it, can't find freedom within it. Death is absolute limit. When it arrives, your freedom ends. Your possibilities cease. Your existence stops. The facticity of mortality is total. Heidegger says you're being toward death. Your entire existence is structured by the awareness that you're mortal. You're not just going to die eventually. You're dying constantly, moving toward death with every moment. Death isn't future event. It's present facticity, shaping how you exist now. The person who learns they have terminal illness confronts death facticity directly. The diagnosis transforms death from abstract certainty to concrete timeline. The facticity becomes immediate, undeniable, urgently present. They're free to choose how to spend remaining time, but they're not free to choose not to die. But everyone has terminal diagnosis. It's called being alive. The person with cancer knows approximately when death will come. The healthy person doesn't know when, but knows death will come. The certainty is identical, only the timeline differs. The facticity of death creates anxiety about time. Your time is limited, facticity. You don't know how limited, uncertainty. This combination creates urgency, pressure, sense that you should be doing something significant before time runs out. The mortality facticity shapes how you value and use time. Death also means your projects will be incomplete. You'll die with goals unachieved, with work unfinished, with relationships unresolved. This incompletion is frustrating facticity. You'd like to finish everything before dying, but death doesn't wait for completion. It arrives when it arrives, ready or not. The person working on life's great project, novel, business, cause, knows that death might arrive before project completes. This knowledge is facticity that shadows the work. They're free to work on the project, but they're not free to ensure they'll finish it. Death might intervene. Death means everything you create is temporary. Your achievements, your relationships, your legacy, all of it will eventually be forgotten when everyone who remembers you dies. This ultimate impermanence is facticity. You can't create anything that lasts forever because death ensures nothing lasts. Different cultures relate to death facticity differently. Some deny it through afterlife beliefs. Some accept it through philosophical frameworks. Some ritualize it through elaborate death customs. But all must acknowledge that death comes, that mortality is inescapable, that this facticity is absolute. The modern world hides death more than traditional societies did. People die in hospitals, not homes. Bodies are handled by professionals, not families. Death is removed from daily life. But this hiding doesn't change the facticity. Death still comes, still inevitable, still certain. The person living authentically, in Heidegger's view, faces death facticity directly. They acknowledge mortality, let it shape their choices, use it as catalyst for living deliberately. Death isn't morbid obsession, but honest recognition of fundamental constraint. The person living inauthentically pretends death won't come, or won't come soon, or won't be final. They distract themselves from mortality, avoid thinking about it, flee from death consciousness. But the fleeing doesn't change the facticity. Death is still coming. Death is the one facticity you can't transcend. You can transcend bodily limits somewhat through tools, technology, medical intervention. You can transcend past through reinterpretation. You can transcend birth circumstances through opportunity and effort. But you can't transcend death, its absolute limit, final facticity, the constraint that ends all constraints by ending you. The fear of death is partly fear of this absolute facticity. You're accustomed to having some freedom, some choice, some possibilities. But death removes all freedom, all choice, all possibility. It's pure facticity. No freedom dimension, no transcendence possibility, just end. Yet death facticity also gives life meaning. If you were immortal, nothing would be urgent. No choice would be particularly significant. You'd have infinite time to do everything. But mortality creates urgency. Your time is limited, so how you spend it matters. Death facticity makes life precious by making it finite. The person who truly accepts death facticity lives differently. Not necessarily better, not necessarily happier, but differently. Choices have different weight when you remember they're being made in finite time. Relationships feel different when you remember they'll end. Experiences are different when you know you won't have infinite opportunities. The acceptance of death facticity doesn't mean wanting to die or being comfortable with dying. It means acknowledging the unchangeable fact you will die. Death will come. Mortality is certain. This acknowledgement is difficult because humans naturally resist facing their own ending. Can you live with death facticity without being paralyzed by it? Can you acknowledge mortality while still making choices, pursuing projects, loving people? Can you accept that death is coming without either obsessing about it or denying it? The person at peace with death facticity isn't unafraid of death. They might fear dying, might not want to die, might fight death when it comes, but they've accepted its inevitability. They're not surprised that death is coming, not in denial about its certainty, not wasting energy wishing they were immortal. Tonight, death facticity is with you. You will die, certain. You don't know when, uncertain. This combination of certainty and uncertainty is fundamental human condition. You can't change it, can't escape it, can only accept it. Tomorrow you'll continue being mortal. Tonight, you rest in the facticity of finite existence, knowing that sleep is small, preview of the permanent rest that facticity guarantees will eventually come. The tension, freedom constrained by facts. You're radically free and absolutely constrained simultaneously. This is the existential paradox that defines human existence. You're free to choose, but you choose within situation you didn't choose. You're free to create yourself, but you create from materials you didn't select. You're free to transcend, but what you transcend is facticity. You can't eliminate. Sartre emphasizes radical freedom. You're always free, always choosing, always responsible. But he also acknowledges facticity. You're always in situation, always embodied, always constrained. The human being is the intersection of freedom and facticity, transcendence and limitation, possibility and givenness. The tension is constant. You want to be free, but facts constrain you. You want to transcend your situation, but situation is given. You want infinite possibility, but possibilities are limited by facticity. You want to create yourself entirely, but you must create yourself from what you've been given. Think about career choice. You're free to choose any career, theoretically, but facticity constrains your education, your location, your economic needs, your talents, your opportunities. You choose, but you choose from limited options shaped by facts you didn't choose. The freedom is real, but bounded. Or consider relationship choice. You're free to pursue relationship with anyone who's willing, but facticity constrains who you meet, who's available, who's interested, what your social context permits, what your past prepared you for. The choice is free, but the options are factically determined. The person in poverty experiences this tension acutely. They're free to choose to pursue wealth, but facticity massively constrains. Lack of education, lack of connections, lack of capital, lack of opportunities. They're free to try, but trying happens within facticity that makes success extremely difficult. The privileged person experiences the tension differently. Their facticity expands options rather than narrowing them. They're still free to choose, and they're still constrained by facts, but their facts are less constraining. The tension is less obvious when facticity is favorable. The existentialist insight is that freedom and facticity aren't opposites, they're interdependent. Freedom requires facticity to be freedom of something. Facticity requires freedom to be facticity for someone. You can't have one without the other. The person who wants pure freedom, no constraints, no facticity, no limits, is wanting impossibility. Pure freedom would be nothing to be free from, nothing to choose about, nothing to transcend. It would be meaningless freedom, because it would have no context, no situation, no ground. Similarly, the person who blames everything on facticity, I had no choice, is denying their freedom. Yes, you're constrained by facts, but within constraints you choose. You might not like your options, but having limited options is still having options, which means freedom operates. The bad faith person tries to collapse the tension. They pretend they're either purely free, denying facticity, or purely determined, denying freedom. But the honest person acknowledges both. I'm free and I'm constrained. I choose and I'm limited. I transcend and I'm given. The tension creates responsibility that's uncomfortable. You can't blame facticity entirely. You're free within it. But you also can't be blamed entirely. Facticity constrained you. The responsibility is partial, which is messy and unsatisfying compared to clear blame or clear innocence. The artist feels this tension in creation. They're free to create anything, but they must create with their particular talents. Facticity, particular training. Facticity, particular materials. Facticity, particular historical moment. Facticity. The creation is free but factically constrained. The activist feels this tension in social change. They're free to work for justice, but they work within political facticity. Existing power structures, historical precedents, current consciousness levels. Their freedom to create change is real, but bounded by social facts they inherit. The tension means you can't fully plan your life. You can set goals, make decisions, choose directions, but facticity intervenes. Illness, accident, economic shifts, others' choices. Your freedom meets facticity's resistance, and the outcome is negotiation between what you choose and what you're given. Different philosophical traditions resolve the tension differently. Determinism denies freedom. Everything is facticity. Nothing is choice. Libertarianism denies facticity. Everything is choice. Nothing is determined. Existentialism maintains the tension. Both are real. Both are permanent. Both are in constant interaction. The person living the tension doesn't try to resolve it. They accept that they're free within constraints, choosing within limits, transcending within situation. They make choices knowing facticity shapes outcomes. They face facticity, knowing freedom remains within it. Can you live the tension without fleeing into one side or the other? Can you accept that you're both free and constrained, both responsible and limited, both transcendent and factical? Can you make choices while acknowledging the facts and acknowledge facts while still choosing? The acceptance of tension is accepting reality of human condition. You're not purely free, that's fantasy. You're not purely determined, that's denial. You're the being who exists in between, who is simultaneously free and constrained, who lives the paradox without resolving it. Tonight, you're free to think any thoughts, imagine any possibilities, but you're constrained by body that needs rest, situation that awaits tomorrow, past that shapes present. The freedom is real. You could stay awake, could imagine different future, could plan changes. The constraint is real. You're tired. Tomorrow has givens. Past is fixed. Both are true. Both are you. Cultural facticity, the given world of meaning. You were born into culture that already existed, with meanings already established, values already functioning, narratives already circulating. This cultural facticity shapes what seems natural, what seems possible, what seems valuable. You absorb culture before you can critique it, internalize meanings before you can question them, become cultural being before you can choose your culture. Language is primary cultural facticity. You learned your first language from culture, not by choice. This language shapes how you think, what distinctions you make, what concepts you have available, what thoughts come easily or with difficulty. You can learn other languages, but first language has primacy. You can't fully escape. The person thinking in English has different conceptual tools than person thinking in Chinese. English grammar emphasizes subjects acting on objects, active agency. Chinese grammar allows more ambiguity about who's acting. These linguistic facticities shape philosophical tendencies. English speakers tend toward individualism, Chinese speakers toward relationality. The religious or secular culture you were born into is facticity. You absorbed it in childhood, not through rational choice but through cultural immersion. Even if you later reject the religion or adopt different beliefs, the original cultural shaping remains as facticity you carry. The person raised Christian, even if they become atheist, still thinks in Christian categories: sin and redemption, guilt and forgiveness, good and evil as cosmic forces. These categories are cultural facticity that shapes thought even after belief in Christianity ends. The gender norms of your culture are facticity. What it means to be man or woman, what behaviors are masculine or feminine, what roles are appropriate. All of this was given by culture before you could choose. You might reject these norms, but they shaped you before you could resist them. The person trying to transcend gender norms discovers that even resistance is shaped by what's being resisted. You can reject cultural masculinity, but your rejection is still defined against the cultural facticity of what masculinity means in your context. The economic system you were born into is facticity, capitalism or socialism, wealth distribution patterns, class structures. These existed before you were conscious and shape your life, whether you consent or not. You can critique the system, but you operate within it. The person who rejects capitalism still lives in capitalist society, uses money, participates in markets, is shaped by economic facticity they can't personally opt out of. The critique is free. The constraint is factical. The historical narratives you inherited are facticity. What counts as important history? Whose perspectives are centered? What events are celebrated or mourned? All of this was decided before you could decide. These narratives shape your sense of identity, belonging, historical meaning. The national mythology you absorbed is facticity. The stories about founding, the heroes celebrated, the values proclaimed, these were given to you as child and shaped your patriotic or critical feelings before you could examine them rationally. The aesthetic standards of your culture are facticity. What counts as beautiful, what's tasteful or tasteless, what's art or craft. These judgments are culturally shaped. Your aesthetic preferences feel natural, but they're largely cultural facticity internalized, so deeply it feels like personal taste. The person who claims to have transcended their culture is usually just performing different culture. You can't be cultureless. You're always in some cultural context, shaped by some set of meanings. Even rejection of one culture is done through another culture's values. The technological facticity of your era shapes possibilities. Born in pre-internet era, certain forms of connection, work, and entertainment weren't possible. Born in internet era, these are facticity, given, assumed, structuring your life. You didn't choose your technological moment. Different cultures give different facticities. The person born in collectivist culture has different psychological facticity than person born in individualist culture. Neither chose their cultural psychology. Both must work with what was given. The cultural facticity creates what feels normal. Your culture's way of organizing family, conducting relationships, measuring success, defining good life. All of this feels natural because it's facticity you absorbed before you could compare it to alternatives. The immigrant experiences double cultural facticity. They carry birth culture facticity. It shaped them fundamentally. They acquire new culture facticity. They must learn to navigate it. They exist in between, shaped by both, belonging fully to neither. The multicultural person negotiates multiple cultural facticity simultaneously. They code switch between cultural contexts, carrying different factical frameworks, never quite reducible to single cultural identity. Can you recognize your cultural facticity without being imprisoned by it? Can you see that your values, meanings, and assumptions are largely culturally given while still operating with those values? Can you hold your culture lightly while being shaped by it heavily? The person aware of cultural facticity isn't necessarily culturally relativist. They might maintain strong values while acknowledging those values are culturally shaped. The awareness doesn't require abandoning values. It requires recognizing their factical origin. Tonight, your thoughts are shaped by language you didn't choose, concepts your culture provided, meanings you absorbed before you could critique them. This cultural facticity is so deep you probably don't notice most of it. It feels like reality rather than cultural construction, but it's facticity nonetheless, given, not chosen, shaping everything while being revisable by nothing. Family facticity, the people you didn't choose. Your family is profound facticity. You didn't choose your parents, your siblings, your extended family. These relationships were given, not selected, yet they shaped you more than almost anything else. The family facticity is particularly powerful because it operates during your most formative years, when you're most vulnerable and least able to resist. Your parents' personalities, values, neuroses, and capabilities were facticity you had to navigate. Loving or distant, stable or chaotic, supportive or critical, present or absent, whatever they were, you had to develop within that context. You didn't choose your developmental environment. The person raised by narcissistic parent has different psychological facticity than person raised by emotionally attuned parent. Neither chose their parent's personality. Both carry developmental consequences of facticity they inherited. The birth order is facticity with psychological implications. Oldest child develops differently than youngest. Only child develops differently than one of many siblings. These developmental differences weren't chosen, but they shape personality, relationships, career patterns. The person whose oldest child carries facticity of responsibility, leadership expectations, caretaking role they didn't choose but had thrust upon them by birth order. This facticity shapes them whether they embrace or resist it. The family's economic situation during your childhood was facticity. Poverty or wealth, stability or precarity, abundance or scarcity. You didn't choose the economic environment you developed in, but it shaped your relationship to money, security, possibility. The person raised in poverty has different relationship to resources than person raised in wealth. The poverty isn't character defect, and the wealth isn't personal achievement. Both are facticity, given circumstances that shaped psychological development. The family's stability or dysfunction is facticity. Parents who stayed together or divorced, home that felt safe or threatened, family that supported or harmed. These weren't your choices, but they formed your attachment patterns, your sense of safety, your trust in relationships. The person from dysfunctional family carries trauma as facticity. They might heal, might develop healthy patterns, might transcend the dysfunction, but the original harm is facticity. It happened, it shaped them, it's part of their history, they can't erase. The family's values and expectations are facticity you absorbed. What the family valued, what behaviors were rewarded or punished, what futures were encouraged or discouraged. All of this shaped you before you could choose your own values. The person whose family expected academic achievement has different relationship to education than person whose family discouraged it. Neither chose their family's educational values, but both carry those values or their rebellion against them. The cultural and religious identity your family gave you is facticity. You were raised in particular tradition, taught particular beliefs, given particular cultural identity. Even if you later change these, the original giving is facticity. The person trying to leave family religion discovers the religion is deeper than belief. Its facticity inhabits reflexes, categories of thought. You can reject the theology, but you still carry cultural facticity of how you were raised. The family secrets, traumas, and histories are facticity you inherit. Your grandparents' war experiences, your parents' early losses, your family's migrations or displacements. These historical facticities shape your family and therefore shape you. The person whose grandparents survived genocide carries intergenerational trauma as facticity. They didn't experience the genocide directly, but its effects reach them through family facticity, patterns of fear, loss, disruption transmitted across generations. The family expectations about who you should become are facticity you must navigate. Be doctor, carry on family business, maintain family reputation. These expectations weren't chosen by you, but they create pressure, guilt, or rebellious resistance. The person who doesn't fulfill family expectations carries that disappointment as facticity. They chose their own path, but the family disappointment is real consequence of facticity. Family expectations meeting freedom, individual choice. Siblings' relationships are facticity. You didn't choose your siblings or how they'd relate to you. Competitive or supportive, close or distant. These relationship patterns formed before you could consciously shape them. The person with difficult sibling relationships didn't choose those difficulties. The personalities, the conflicts, the patterns, these emerged from facticity. Who your siblings are, interacting with more facticity, family dynamics, birth order, developmental timing. Can you accept your family facticity without being defined by it? Can you acknowledge that these unchosen people and circumstances shaped you fundamentally while still recognizing your freedom to relate to that shaping? The person at peace with family facticity hasn't necessarily made peace with their family. They might have difficult or distant relationships, but they've accepted the factual nature of family origin. These were the people, this was the situation, this is what shaped early development. Fighting the facticity is futile. Working with its consequences is possible. Tonight, you carry your family facticity. The patterns learned in childhood, the attachment styles formed in early relationships, the values absorbed before you could question them. All of this is facticity, given, not chosen, shaping you still. You can't choose different family of origin, but you can choose what to make of the family you were given. Physical world facticity, the constraints of material reality. You exist in physical world that operates according to laws you didn't create and can't change. Gravity, thermodynamics, entropy, finitude of resources. These are physical facticities that constrain all human freedom. You can work with physical laws, but you can't work against them. Gravity is simple facticity. You can't fly without technological assistance. You can't float. You fall when you jump. This physical fact shapes everything. How you move, what's possible, what you must account for. The freedom to ignore gravity doesn't exist. The person who wants to transcend physical limits discovers the limits are absolute. You need oxygen to breathe, food to live, sleep to function. These aren't suggestions or preferences. They're physical necessities imposed by facticity of biological existence. The climate and geography of where you live is facticity. You can move to different climate, but you can't change climate itself. You're subject to weather, seasons, natural disasters. These physical facts shape your life whether you acknowledge them or not. The person living in earthquake zone has that risk as facticity. They can prepare, can build resilient structures, can choose to move. But while they're there, the facticity of geological instability shapes their life. The earth doesn't care about their preferences. The resource limitations of physical world are facticity. Finite water, finite fossil fuels, finite space, finite materials. These limitations create constraints on collective human freedom. You can distribute resources differently, but you can't make them infinite. The person concerned about climate change confronts physical facticity. Carbon in atmosphere creates warming. Warming creates consequences. These physical processes don't care about economic systems, political ideologies, or human preferences. They're facticity, physical reality operating according to physical laws. The speed of light is facticity limiting possibility. You can't travel faster, can't communicate faster, can't affect events beyond light speed distance instantaneously. This physical limit constrains what's possible in universe. The person wanting to explore distant stars confronts facticity of vast distances and physical limits on travel speed. The desire is free. The physical constraints are factical. The gap between what you want and what physics permits is permanent. The laws of thermodynamics are facticity. Entropy increases, energy dissipates. Heat flows from hot to cold. These aren't human rules that could be changed. They're physical facts describing how universe operates. You can harness them but not violate them. The aging and eventual heat death of universe is cosmic facticity. On timescales incomprehensibly vast, physical processes ensure that all complexity eventually dissolves. All energy eventually dissipates, all structure eventually decays. This ultimate physical facticity makes all human projects ultimately temporary. The person contemplating cosmic facticity might feel their concerns shrink to nothing. What does your anxiety matter when universe is dying? But cosmic facticity and personal facticity operate at different scales. Both are real. Both constrain in different ways. The biological facticity of reproduction shapes human possibilities. Humans reproduce sexually, have limited fertile years, require extended childhood development. These biological facts create constraints and possibilities around family, generations, population. The person trying to have children after biological window closes confronts facticity of aging fertility. Technology extends the window somewhat, but biological limits remain. The facticity constrains even as freedom pursues. The disease and suffering that physical bodies experience is facticity. Cancer, heart disease, neurological disorders. These physical processes happen according to biological and physical laws. You can treat illness, but you can't make flesh invulnerable. The person with chronic illness lives with daily facticity of bodily limitation. They adapt, cope, manage, but the illness is facticity, unchosen, unwelcome, operating according to biological processes, indifferent to preferences. The technological possibilities of your era are physical facticity, pre-electricity. Certain possibilities didn't exist. Post-internet, certain constraints are removed. You're born into era with particular technological development level, facticity shaping what's possible. The person wishing they'd lived in different era confronts temporal physical facticity. You exist now with now's technologies, now's knowledge, now's capabilities. You can't access different eras' advantages without accepting different eras' constraints. Can you accept physical facticity without resentment? Can you work within physical laws rather than raging against them? Can you recognize that material reality doesn't care about your preferences while still exercising freedom within material constraints? The person at peace with physical facticity isn't necessarily happy about physical limits. They might wish for different laws, different body, different world. But they've accepted that physical reality operates as it operates, that material facts are facts, that wishing doesn't change physics. Tonight, you're subject to physical facticity. Your body needs horizontal rest. Your brain needs sleep to restore function. Your biological processes operate according to circadian rhythms. All of this is physical facticity, unchangeable by will, operating according to laws, constraining your freedom to stay awake indefinitely. You can fight the facticity temporarily, but eventually physical reality wins. The impossibility of total freedom, why facticity is permanent. You want to be totally free, unconstrained, unlimited, able to do anything, be anything, transcend everything. But total freedom is impossible because freedom requires facticity to be freedom of something. Without constraints, freedom would be meaningless. The impossibility of total freedom is itself facticity. You're permanently in situation, permanently embodied, permanently constrained. The fantasy of total freedom is fantasy of being God, creating reality from nothing, unconstrained by facts, able to will anything into existence. But you're not God. You're human, which means fundamentally factical, thrown into world, embodied in flesh, constrained by circumstances, limited by time and space. The person pursuing total freedom discovers that each constraint removed reveals new constraints. You escape poverty, great. Now you're constrained by wealth's obligations. You leave restrictive culture, great. Now you're constrained by dislocation. You transcend one facticity. You're still embedded in others. The radical freedom that existentialists describe isn't freedom from all constraints. It's freedom within constraints. Freedom to choose how to relate to facticity, what meaning to give facts, what possibilities to pursue among those facticity permits. The freedom is real but bounded. The person who says I can be anything is expressing aspiration, not reality. You can't be anything. You can be some things within the constraints of your facticity. You can become different than you are, but you become from what you already are, which is facticity. The liberation movements throughout history aren't about achieving total freedom. They're about removing specific constraints. Emancipation from slavery, women's liberation, decolonization. These expand freedom by reducing particular facticity's weight. But they don't eliminate facticity entirely. The freed slave is no longer constrained by slavery, but is still constrained by racism, by economic facticity, by other social facts. The liberation is real and important, but it's liberation within continued facticity, not escape into total freedom. The fantasy of starting over completely, new identity, new place, new life, runs into facticity. You bring your past facticity. You bring your body facticity. You bring your body facticity. You bring your body psychological patterns facticity. You can change situations, but you can't escape being situated. The person who moves to new country discovers they can't leave themselves behind. They bring their past, their habits, their personality. They can develop new patterns, but development happens from what they already are. Facticity they carry wherever they go. The existentialist concept of situation captures this permanent embedding in facticity. You're always in situation. The situation changes, but you're never situationless. You're always somewhere, somewhen, somebody, with particular facts constraining particular possibilities. Even death doesn't free you from facticity. It ends you entirely. You're not freed into bodiless existence. You cease existing. Death is ultimate facticity that ends all freedom by ending the being who could be free. The person imagining afterlife is imagining escape from earthly facticity. But even afterlife stories give new constraints: heaven's rules, karma's laws, reincarnation's conditions. Total freedom isn't imagined, even in religious escape fantasies. The truth is that humans need constraints. Without facticity, choice would be meaningless. If everything were possible, nothing would matter. Without limitations, achievement would be impossible. Nothing would be difficult. Nothing would be accomplishment. Without resistance, freedom would have nothing to be free from. The artist needs constraints: canvas size, paint properties, physical laws to create. Total freedom would be blank infinite possibility with no ground to push against. The constraints aren't just limitations, they're enabling conditions of creation. The person attempting to live without any rules, structure, or constraints discovers that total freedom is paralyzing. What do you do when anything is possible? How do you choose when there are no criteria for choice? The absence of constraint doesn't enable, it overwhelms. The acceptance of facticity's permanence is accepting human condition. You'll always be constrained. You'll always have facticity you didn't choose. You'll always be limited by facts you can't change. This is permanent, and permanence is itself facticity. Can you accept that total freedom is impossible? Can you work with the facticity you have, rather than yearning for freedom you can't have? Can you exercise real freedom within real constraints rather than lamenting the constraints? The person at peace with facticity's permanence has stopped fighting against human condition. They're not trying to become God, not demanding total freedom, not resenting limitations. They accept, I'm human, I'm factical, I'm constrained. Within these facts, I'm free. The freedom is bounded but real. Tonight, you're permanently factical. You can't escape your body, your past, your mortality, your situation. Tomorrow won't bring total freedom, it'll bring different facticity. But within tomorrow's facts, you'll still be free to choose, to create meaning, to respond. The facticity is permanent, but so is the freedom that operates within it. Facticity is ground, the strange necessity of limits, The heaviest recognition about facticity might also be the most liberating. Facticity isn't just limitation, it's ground. The facts you can't change provide the foundation for the freedom you can exercise. Without facticity, you'd be floating in infinite possibility with nothing to stand on. The constraints enable rather than just restrict. Think about language as facticity. Your native language constrains. There are thoughts easier in other languages, concepts your language makes difficult. But language also enables. It gives you tools for thought, framework for understanding, means of communication. The constraint is also capability. The person fluent in only one language is both limited and enabled by linguistic facticity. They can't think easily in concepts their language lacks, but they can think deeply in concepts their language emphasizes. The facticity limits and enables simultaneously. Your past as facticity works similarly. Yes, your past constrains. You can't have different history, can't undo what happened, can't start fresh. But past also enables. It gives you experiences to draw on, lessons you've learned, skills you've developed. You create future from foundation of past. The person with difficult past might wish they could erase it, but that past created who they are, including strengths they developed responding to difficulty. The facticity limited possibilities, but also created particular capabilities that easier past wouldn't have developed. Your body is facticity, both limits and enables. Yes, bodily constraints are frustrating. You can't do everything, can't be infinitely capable, can't escape physical limits. But body also enables. It's how you experience world, how you act in world, how you exist concretely, rather than abstractly. The person with disability experiences bodily limitation acutely, but they also experience ways disability develops particular capacities, different perception, creative problem solving, resilience. The facticity constrains, but also shapes distinctive strengths. Birth circumstances as facticity create both constraints and possibilities. Yes, you didn't choose your situation, and it limited your options, but it also gave you particular perspective, particular knowledge, particular capabilities. The facticity created who you are, which is both limitation and identity. The working class person who becomes professional carries class facticity. They're limited by lack of connections, cultural capital, ease in elite spaces, but they're also enabled by working class facticity, understanding of struggle, connection to community, particular forms of knowledge. The limitation is also resource. Facticity provides what freedom alone cannot. Particularity. Pure freedom would be abstract, general, universal, but you're not abstract, you're particular. This body, this history, this situation, the particularity is facticity, and particularity is what makes you real rather than theoretical. The person trying to be universal, to transcend all particularity, discovers they become thin, abstract, disconnected. The particular facticity they're trying to escape is what makes them concrete, real, grounded. The limitation is also substance. Facticity creates identity. Without particular facts about you, who would you be? Pure consciousness, abstract freedom, nothing definite. The facts you can't change are part of what makes you someone rather than anyone or no one. The person seeking authentic identity discovers authenticity requires accepting facticity. You can't be authentically yourself while rejecting the facts that constitute you. The authentic self isn't pure freedom creating from nothing. It's freedom working with facticity to create meaningful particular existence. Different philosophical traditions recognize this grounding function. Existentialism, facticity is situation from which freedom operates. Phenomenology, facticity is background that makes experience possible. Even Buddhism, The particular form you take, however temporary, is necessary for existence and enlightenment. The gratitude for facticity is strange gratitude. You're grateful for constraints, for limits, for facts you didn't choose. But yes, without them, you wouldn't be you. Without them, freedom would have no ground. Without them, existence would be impossible. The person at peace with facticity recognizes it as necessary condition of existence, not just unfortunate limitation to tolerate, but structural necessity that enables everything. The facts are heavy, but they're also foundation. The constraints are frustrating, but they're also ground. Can you see your facticity as both burden and ground? Can you accept the facts that limit you while recognizing they also enable you? Can you work with facticity rather than just against it? The shift is from fighting facticity to working with it, not denying the constraints, but using them as material for creation, not resenting the facts, but building on the foundation they provide, not wishing for different facticity, but fully inhabiting the facticity you have. Tonight, your facticity grounds you, the weight of your body on the bed grounding, the accumulation of your past leading to this moment grounding, the particular circumstances of your situation grounding. All of it constrains but also enables. All of it limits but also provides foundation. The facticity is heavy, but it's also what makes you real. The creative response, freedom within facticity. You can't change your facticity, but you can change what you make of it. This is where freedom operates, not in changing facts, but in choosing meaning, not in escaping constraints, but in creating within them. The creative response to facticity is how you exercise freedom despite being fundamentally constrained. The same facticity can be lived differently depending on response. Two people born into similar circumstances develop differently because they respond to facticity differently. The facts are similar. The freedom exercised within facts creates difference. The person born into poverty can respond with resentment, acceptance, determination, despair, or creativity. The poverty is facticity, unchangeable by individual, but the response to poverty is freedom, chosen, variable, creating different meanings and different futures from same factical starting point. The artist with disability doesn't choose disability, but they choose whether disability becomes obstacle, inspiration, theme, irrelevance, or identity. The facticity is given. The creative response to facticity shapes how disability figures in their work and life. The immigrant didn't choose to be displaced, but they choose how to relate to displacement as loss, as opportunity, as identity, as trauma, as adventure. The facticity of being between cultures is given. What they make of that position is freedom. Sartre's example of the mountain illustrates this. The mountain is facticity. It's there, it's high, it's difficult, but the mountain only becomes obstacle if you choose to climb it. If you don't want to climb, the mountain isn't obstacle, it's just feature of landscape. Your project determines whether facticity is obstacle or irrelevance. The person who wants to climb experiences mountain as difficult obstacle. The person who wants to paint experiences same mountain as beautiful subject. The person who wants flat land experiences mountain as annoying impediment. The facticity is identical. The meaning varies with project. Your past as facticity can be burden of trauma or foundation of strength, depending on creative response. The facts of what happened don't change, but whether you're crushed by past or strengthened by surviving it depends partly on how you choose to relate to unchangeable facts. The person who survived abuse didn't choose the abuse, but they choose whether to be defined by it, to be destroyed by it, to use it as motivation, to help others because of it, or to transcend it. The facticity is given. The response is freedom, creating meaning from fact. The creative response isn't denial of facticity. It's not pretending facts are different than they are. It's accepting facts fully while choosing what to make of them. The acceptance of facticity and the freedom to respond aren't opposites. They're complementary. The person in chronic pain doesn't choose the pain, but they choose how to live with pain. Where the pain dominates life, becomes teacher, creates empathy, motivates adjustment, or gets integrated into larger life context. The facticity of pain is unchangeable. The life built around pain is creative response. Different people have different ranges of creative response based on their facticity. The person with more resources has more options. The person with more constraints has fewer options. But both have some freedom to respond creatively, even if the range differs. The enslaved person has minimal freedom. Massive facticity constrains almost everything. But even in slavery, small freedoms exist. How to think about situation, how to maintain dignity, how to resist subtly, how to help others. The creative response might be minimal, but it's never zero. The creative response often involves finding unexpected possibilities within constraints. The constraint seems to close possibilities, but creative examination reveals possibilities the constraint creates. The limitation becomes productive rather than just restrictive. The musician with damaged hand can't play as before. This seems like pure loss, but the limitation forces creativity, new techniques, new instruments, new musical ideas that wouldn't have emerged without constraint. The facticity closes one path but opens others. The person aging loses youth's capacities, but aging opens other possibilities. Wisdom from experience, freedom from youthful anxieties, different relationships to time and meaning. The facticity of aging constrains physically while enabling psychologically. The creative response requires accepting facticity first. You can't work creatively with constraints you're denying. First comes acceptance. These are the facts. Then comes creativity. What can I make of these facts? The sequence matters. The person stuck in denial fights against facticity rather than working with it. They waste energy wishing facts were different rather than using energy to create within facts. The acceptance of unchangeable reality is prerequisite for creative response. Can you respond creatively to your facticity? Can you accept the facts fully while exercising freedom to determine what they mean? Can you work with constraints rather than just against them? The person living creatively with facticity isn't happy about all their constraints. They still might wish for different facts, but they're not paralyzed by wishing. They're creating with what they have, finding possibilities within limits, making meaning from facts. Tonight, you can respond to your facticity. The facts are what they are, your body, your past, your situation. But what you make of these facts tomorrow is partly free. The creative response to unchangeable facts is where your freedom lives. The facticity provides material, freedom provides creativity. Together they create your life, the acceptance. Living peacefully with what can't change, we arrive at acceptance, not celebration of facticity. Not gratitude for all constraints, but realistic acknowledgement of what can and can't be changed. You're embedded in facticity permanently. Fighting against facts is futile. Accepting facts while exercising freedom within them is possible. This is the path to peace with unchangeable reality. The first acceptance. You didn't choose most of what defines you. Your body, your past, your birth circumstances, your death. These were given, not chosen. You're responsible for what you make of them, but you're not responsible for them existing. The blame for unchosen facticity doesn't belong to you. The second acceptance. You can't change the facts. You can change your situation partially, can modify your body somewhat, can reinterpret your past differently, but the fundamental facts remain. Fighting against facticity is fighting against reality, and reality always wins. The third acceptance: the facts aren't fair. Some people get favorable facticity, others get harsh facticity. There's no cosmic justice distributing facticity equally. The randomness is frustrating, but it's real. Demanding fairness from facticity is demanding something facticity can't provide. The fourth acceptance: facticity enables as well as constrains. The facts provide ground, create identity, enable particularity. Without facticity, you'd be abstract nothing. With facticity, you're concrete someone. The constraints are also what makes you real. The fifth acceptance: freedom operates within facticity, not outside it. You're free despite constraints, not free from constraints. The freedom is real but bounded. Accepting the bounds makes the freedom more usable than denying them. The sixth acceptance: other people have their own facticity, their constraints, their given situations, their unchosen circumstances. Understanding this creates compassion. They're dealing with facticity too, making choices within constraints they didn't choose. The seventh acceptance: facticity changes without your consent. You age, situations shift, new facts emerge. You can't freeze facticity at favorable moment. The ongoing change is itself facticity. You must accept. The eighth acceptance: accepting facticity doesn't mean liking it. You can accept your past while wishing it were different. You can accept your body while wishing for different body. Acceptance is acknowledging reality, not approving of it. The ninth acceptance: you'll keep discovering new facticities, facts you didn't know about yourself, your past, your situation. Each discovery requires new acceptance. The acceptance is ongoing process, not one-time achievement. The 10th acceptance: living with facticity is enough. You don't need to overcome all constraints, transcend all limitations, escape all facts. Living creatively within facticity is sufficient. The goal isn't escaping human condition, but inhabiting it honestly. The person accepting facticity stops wasting energy on impossible wishes, stops fighting against unchangeable reality, stops demanding that facts be different. The energy saved from futile fighting becomes available for creative response to actual facts. The acceptance includes self-compassion. You're dealing with difficult facticity, embodiment, mortality, throwness, constraints. This is hard. Being gentle with yourself while navigating unchosen facts isn't weakness. It's realistic acknowledgement of human conditions' difficulty. Different people come to acceptance through different paths, some through exhaustion. They fought long enough and finally accept. Some through philosophy. Understanding facticity conceptually helps accept it practically. Some through crisis. Confronting facticity dramatically forces acceptance. But all acceptance involves similar shift, from fighting what is to working with what is, from demanding different facts to creating within actual facts, from resenting constraints to using constraints creatively. The person at peace with facticity still has facticity. The constraints remain. The facts are still given. The limitations persist. But the relationship to facticity has changed from resistance to acceptance, from resentment to acknowledgement, from fighting to working with. This doesn't mean passivity. Acceptance of facticity is compatible with changing what can be changed. You accept your past while creating different future. You accept your body while treating it as well as possible. You accept constraints while maximizing freedom within them. The acceptance is dynamic, not static. You keep accepting new facticities as they emerge. Keep working creatively with facts as they change. Keep navigating the tension between given and chosen as it evolves throughout life. Tonight, you can practice acceptance. These facts, your body, your past, your situation, are real. You didn't choose them all. You can't change them all, but you can accept them as the facts they are. The acceptance doesn't make facts lighter necessarily, but it makes the burden more bearable. The rest from fighting, sleep and facticity. We end with sleep, rest from the constant navigation of facticity and freedom, the endless tension between given and chosen, the perpetual negotiation of constraints and possibilities. In sleep, the facts remain, but the struggle with them pauses. The facticity is still there, your body, your past, your situation, but for these hours you rest from responding to it. Sleep is itself facticity. You need it, can't escape needing it, must surrender to biological necessity. But this facticity is merciful rather than oppressive. Sleep restores, refreshes, provides necessary rest from being conscious, and therefore from being aware of constraints. The comfort of sleep is that it doesn't require choosing. You can't sleep through effort, you must release effort. The facticity of biological sleep requirements takes over, and consciousness that normally navigates facticity subsides. You stop working with constraints and let constraints work on you. As you lie down tonight, you're accepting bodily facticity. This flesh needs horizontal rest. You're accepting temporal facticity. This day is over. That past is fixed. You're accepting situational facticity. Tomorrow's circumstances are partly determined. All of this is given, and tonight you accept the giving. The weight of facticity that you carried all day can be set down, not eliminated. The facts remain, but rested from. You don't have to be creative with constraints right now. You don't have to exercise freedom within limitations right now. You can just rest in the facticity of biological necessity for sleep. Your body will process the day while you sleep, facticity operating according to biological programs you don't control. Your brain will consolidate memories, process experiences, prepare for tomorrow, all of this happening according to factical processes that require no conscious direction. Tomorrow you'll wake to the same facticity, same body, same past, same mortality, same situation. The facts won't have changed fundamentally, but you'll be rested, ready to navigate the facts again, prepared to exercise freedom within constraints again. The acceptance tonight is this: I'm factical being, embedded in facts I didn't choose, constrained by circumstances I can't fully escape. This is reality. This is human condition. This is what it means to be thrown into existence, embodied in flesh, situated in world. But I'm also free within these facts. Tomorrow I'll choose again how to respond to unchangeable reality. Tomorrow I'll create again within given constraints. Tomorrow I'll exercise freedom that facticity enables rather than just prevents. Tonight, though, I rest from freedom and from facticity, from choosing and from being constrained, from creating meaning and from accepting givens. Tonight, biological facticity takes over, consciousness subsides, and the weight of being situated being can rest. Good night, factical being. Your constraints are real. Body's limits, past's permanence, situations givens. Your freedom is real too. Response to facts, meaning made from givens. Creativity within constraints. Both are permanent. Both are you. Sleep now in the facticity you can't escape, and the freedom you'll exercise tomorrow. The facts will still be there when you wake, and so will the possibility of responding to them, working with them, creating within them. For now, rest. The facticity holds you. Literally, the bed supports your body's weight. Let the facts do their work while you sleep. The universe doesn't care about your facticity or your freedom, doesn't care about your constraints or your creativity. This indifference is itself facticity. You exist in cosmos that provides no answers, no validation, no cosmic significance, just facts and whatever freedom you can exercise within them. But tonight, this cosmic indifference is comfort. You're not required to justify your facticity, not obligated to transcend all constraints, not responsible for being thrown into existence without choosing it. You're just here, factically, embedded in givens you didn't select. Sleep is returned to pure facticity, body operating according to biological necessity, consciousness suspended, freedom temporarily paused. Tomorrow you'll be free and factical being again. Tonight, you're just factical. Flesh needing rest, biology requiring sleep, materiality asserting its demands. Rest in your facticity. Tomorrow's freedom can wait. Tonight, accept the weight of everything you can't change, and let that weight settle into rest. The facts ground you, constrain you, and tonight support you as you sleep. Good night. May sleep bring rest from the burden of being factically embedded and freely responsible. May tomorrow bring renewed creativity within unchangeable constraints. But tonight you rest in what is, what was given, what can't be changed but can be peacefully accepted. The facticity remains. The freedom will return. Tonight you rest between them, in the truth that you're both forever constrained and forever free, forever given and forever choosing, forever factical and forever human. Sleep well, situated being. Your facts are heavy, but they're also ground. Your weight is real, but it's also you. Your constraints are frustrating, but they're also enabling. All of this is facticity, and tonight it holds you as you rest.